Foreign Minister Penny Wong has ignited a political firestorm, but is today standing firm as she sets out the case for recognising a Palestinian state.
Long-term peace will require a two-state solution.
The Foreign Minister today doubling down.
We have to work out how it is we break the endless cycle of violence.
In the wake of an explosive speech last night.
The simple truth is that a secure and prosperous future for both Israelis and Palestinians will only come with a two-state solution.
For decades, world leaders have agreed on one thing, that the only way to bring about peace is through a two-state solution, the creation of an independent Israel and an independent Palestine. But Wong's speech was the first signal that the Australian government might recognise Palestinian statehood without the support of Israel.
The international community is now considering the question of Palestinian statehood as a way of building momentum towards a two-state solution.
This speech is really a warning to Israel that there are ramifications for ignoring international humanitarian law and ignoring the international community's desires for the war to stop.
Already, 139 of the 193 UN member states, that's 70%, recognise the state of Palestine. The US, the UK and Australia do not.
Will Australia vote in favour of Palestinian statehood if it's raised at the UN?
We'll see what comes forward.
We don't think that Hamas should have any role in a future Palestinian state. We've made that very clear.
But Wong's words have drawn fire.
Sends the wrong type of signal to terrorists that you can get outcomes from the type of horrific actions that were undertaken on October 7.
Everyone from President Biden down supports a future Palestinian state with a reformed Palestinian Authority. The problem is that the Palestinian Authority is neither reformed nor in charge. Hamas is in charge in the Gaza Strip.
The only time we can begin to talk about a two-state solution is firstly with the demise of Hamas, not when Israelis remain in captivity, not when they're still fighting for their lives.
But Wong argues that the recognition of Palestinian statehood would help undermine Hamas and that it is the only hope for peace.
There are those who always claim recognition is rewarding an enemy. This is wrong.
Professor Greg Barton is an international relations expert at Deakin University. Greg, for many people watching, a two-state solution isn't anything new. It's been something that we've been talking about for years. So why is this speech from Penny Wong such a big deal?
Yeah, it's a very carefully considered wording. It's not a new policy that's been decided, but it's the opening of a debate. And I think really the urgency comes from the day after in Gaza. So if we go to a ceasefire and we end the siege, we get humanitarian work in, then we'd have to talk about what happens next, rebuilding Gaza. Now, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, UAE are likely to all be involved, but only if there is an agreement on two-state solution. So that new administration in Gaza would be the embryo of a two-state solution Palestinian state. Now, that's some way off, but that conversation needs to start, including within the Labor Party, frankly, and including in Australia. So this is sort of kicking off the conversation. It's conversation's been going on for years, but it's got a sense of urgency now.
What impact would Australia recognising the Palestinian state have on the world at large?
It's a good question, Matt. I mean, you've got 139, 140 countries already recognising a Palestinian state, but they're not Western democracies. Australia would be the first significant Western democracy to make that step. So it would strengthen the arm of those inside the Biden administration, even those inside Westminster, to step forward themselves. So it's in itself, we can't do that much, but we're a middle-sized power of some consequence. And I think it's important that we sort of get into these waters. This is something that no one wants to do, but it has to be done.
Critics of Wong say this rewards terrorism and Hamas. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's kind of predictable, Sarah, and it's understandable as well. I mean, absolutely, Hamas shouldn't be rewarded. Wong is very clear that Hamas has no future in Gaza or in the West Bank. It has to be eliminated in terms of the military threat, but also the political power that it holds. But this current 6-month-long war isn't working. It's not solving the problem. There needs to be a political solution. So Wong's argument is moving on to the political front. This is actually a way to weaken Hamas and to make it more possible, as she said, to step down the path to what comes next.
Just on that, Wong does say that making Palestine a state will undermine Hamas, but how will that happen?
Well, the people in Gaza in particular need to have some hope that they're not going to be left, as they have been since 2006, left alone with Hamas without anyone to protect them. That there has to be mean, firstly, the whole Gaza Strip has to be rebuilt. That's going to require regional international help, which won't come without agreement on the two-state solution foundation. And the people's confidence needs to be won over. I mean, Hamas launched a terrible, provocative terrorist attack on October 7th. It wanted a response from the IDF. Israel had to respond, but arguably it wasn't wise about the way it's responded, because it actually, in many ways, strengthens Hamas. So this is about changing that calculus.
Greg, you talk about the importance of hope. For me, I don't think you can have that without trust. So how do you start building trust between these two states when there's been so much bloodshed?
Look, you're right, Georgie. There's a lot of trauma. Israelis are feeling very traumatised. October 7th was, unbelievably horrible. People in Gaza, for around understandable reasons, are very traumatised. Also in the West Bank. So it's small steps towards building trust. It's talking about a pathway to a political solution. The two-state idea is not a new idea. It's been around for a long time. Some had said that its day had passed, but there is no solution. Somebody will have to govern the Gaza Strip, beginning later this year. Israel says it doesn't want to do it. It's concerned about security, understandably. But if you want help with governing the Gaza Strip, then you need to get back to this old argument about recognising a Palestinian state. And Wong is simply opening up that discussion. It's not a fait accompli at this point.
Professor, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Georgie. Thanks.